As ever, I have the delightful Anne. Hello, Anne.
Hello, nice to see you.
Anne Laure Jackson is a specialist sensory occupational therapist who basically makes all of our lives better.
Well, that's a lovely way of saying it, but yes, that's what we hope to do.
That's the goal, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Last week we touched on, I think it was our largest number of different potential sensory issues last week, which was kind of cool. Um, I say this a lot, but I love how we can just go from so many different potential sensory problems. Because I remember when we started doing these, you said there's a lot of assumption that if you've got sensory issues, it's because you've got an 8-year-old child with ADHD or something very similar to that. And yet sensory issues are so much wider than that. Because we've touched on babies in the womb, we've touched on dementia, and how sensory health can help that. We've looked at pregnancy for the mum. We've looked at truck design, electric cars, the problems of noise or lack thereof in cars. This is such a wide impacting subject, though, isn't it?
It is, and that's obviously why I love it, because we can impact for good so many different areas. And that's where I was doing some training recently this week, going right back down, back down the foundations, all the developmental stages that we go through, and thinking it is at birth, it is during the womb where so much of that sensory processing happens and needs to happen. And the stronger we can get those foundations of the building of humanity, the building of the human body, the human mind, the human psyche, the human everything is built on the foundations of the senses and sensory processing. And that's why I think we could go on talking for years, because we can, the topics, the experiences, the impacts, the effects, the damage, all the different interplays of sensory processing. It just affects so many aspects of life, in our mental health, our physical health, obviously our sensory health, but we are complex as humans. And so if you have something that's affected in one area, and it's going to have an impact on another. So sensory health will impact people's physical health. It will impact people's mental health. And yeah, there's such an interplay between them. And in so many different areas of speech and language, of communication, of being able to do a job, physically being able to carry out skills, to be able to have conversation, to be out socially or not. Everything about who we are and how we are is impacted by our sensory health and our sensory processing.
I remember a long time ago, I was going to say I was enjoying a conversation. It wasn't actually that enjoyable, but there was a dentist on one hand, and there was a speech therapist on the other, and they got into a conversation about dummies and babies and whether they were good or bad.
Mm.
It was really fascinating because the dentist said sometimes there's a real medical need for a dummy. It can be really good for the baby. And the speech therapist was there saying there's never really a need for a dummy. And it was just, hence it wasn't enjoyable, because there were complete loggerheads over
Right.
one simple common item, the dummy, or the pacifier from the US. And yet one was saying it can be great and one was saying it can never be great. And, somehow we need to find what's right for us. But of course, the dentist was right. There are times when it's good. And the speech therapist is right. There are times when it's really, really not good because it's going to affect therapy, the ability to speak. So how do we help ourselves to work out what's right and what's wrong? Because both of those people in their professions were 100% correct, and yet they seem to be in conflict. I don't think they actually were, but if you listened in at the wrong time, it certainly would have felt like that.
Yeah, certainly. And you'd have the sensory aspect, as I'd love to speak into the use of dummies as well, or pacifiers, as you say, because they can both. Well, I suppose I'm more in the middle, because my whole ethos, the whole way of being, is that it just depends. It's about what is right for you within the confines of. I'm not saying you do whatever you want whenever you want to. There is morality, there are ethics, there are things that are important in how we live and the choices that we make in life. And I think we do have a responsibility to honor and to respect other people and what's and their lives. But ultimately it comes down to being able to see both sides of it and choose wherever you sit on the spectrum of it being good and it being bad. because the choices to inform that are so varied. So for me, if I was coming into the whole dummy argument, for example, it is a brilliant oral motor regulating tool. It saves the child having to be on the mother's breast, for an example, because that's the obvious place where that whole thing comes from. And it frees the mother to actually be able to do something for a certain amount of time. Whereas the natural thing that we are designed to enjoy the whole suckling process and to have that oral motor experience. And it's very satisfying, and it's very calming, and it's very organizing. So from a regulation perspective, having something to be able to chew on that fits the oral motor need just brilliantly, like a dummy has been created, it is superb. However, if there is a dependency on that, we have social norms that you really don't want a 30-year-old going around with a dummy in their mouth. Developmentally, it's not great. It cannot be great at times for dental work. It cannot be great for speech and language. There are lots of things it could be a downside for. But if you recognize if there is a need, it's most of the time it is everything in moderation. I remember my parents used to say that to me, everything in moderation. I'm thinking most things in moderation now is what I'm probably my take, but it's more like assess what it's used for. If for me, if it's being used as a regulation tool, use it when you need to regulate, but don't become dependent on it, and use other tools. Find other tools instead, so that there is a variety of oral motor things. Does that make sense as an example?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it just reminded me of a second off the back of that conversation, because one of the dentists, well, the lady that was a dentist, her child had some real severe physical health when they were born, and they were not putting on weight. And I mean, the consultancy was involved, and they're really struggling on why is this child not putting on weight. And one of the things they discovered was, because she was a dentist, everything was sugar free, so it was like really reduced calories. And one of the things the consultant said is, that's great for the teeth. I don't care about the teeth because they're going to lose them. I do care about the weight. So in the end, what they said was, if your child will eat it and it's chocolate, I don't care. We don't care about nutrition. We only, at this specific moment, care about calories. So if they'll only eat bars of chocolate, great. Feed them it 24 hours a day, because right now, nutrition, health, I don't care about that part. All we need is calories, whatever form they'll take. And I guess it's going to be the same in a very different context for you, that sometimes you're doing things which may not make sense, but actually there's a more important core issue which has to be solved before we can get to other stuff which to us is important, but actually is probably peripheral.
And that's a massive thing. That's a big part in the coaching, where I try and help families decide what is the priority now. What do we need to work on today? What do we work on for the next week or two, the next number of months? What do we just need to leave aside until 6 months' time? And if we have, for example, got oral motor things, if we've got them sucking and chewing on things that may not be that appropriate, at least they're not going through their clothes, because they'll chew their clothes, and you're changing their clothes like 9 times a day was one of the families I was working with. And that's a lot of money. And it's like, let's just redirect that sensory need at the moment. It is there. We will be able to calm it down. We will be able to stop the chewing as much as it is going on at the minute. But for now, let's redirect it, get them chewing on something, get them whatever. And then in 6 months' time, once we've got the nervous system in a better state, then we can redirect to something else that's more appropriate than them using a dummy, for example, rather than chewing. So you take people off themselves onto something else, and then it's a process that you move them off something that's maybe not, it's okay, but it's not really what you would hope for. And you move them onto then something more appropriate, where, well, let's get them getting carrots to get that oral motor, get them having crunchy food instead. And if the nuts, if there's too much fat, if they're putting on too much weight because it's the nuts, well, then it's just like, well, let's go back to the carrots. Let's go to apple. Let's go to other things that they can chew on. So all the time, it is a process, and it's making those choices for this moment in time, what is right for now, recognizing that things will change. and things need to change probably, but you can't jump from A to C. You have to go via B, or it's a lot easier. You might be able to go from A to C, perhaps, I don't know, but I wouldn't. I just think it's harder for most people to jump. Let's go A, then B, and then C, and we'll just walk the journey and try and make good choices along the way that are going to help us head in a more sensory healthy direction.
Which I would imagine is why we need specialists, because I mean, the example of that child having their clothes changed so frequently, I'm immediately as a parent going to, that's a lot more tiredness as well, because it's the effort of having to change a child is not necessarily going to be quick. If they don't want to be changed now, it's not just a quick change of clothes. Now it's an hour's ordeal for everyone involved. Now you're looking at exhaustion as well. So it's not just as simple as, oh, we'll just change the clothes, on we go again. And the other problem, I guess, is that you're going to find yourself into patterns of actions which are kind of self-repeating and sort of self-destructive as well, because you can't pull yourself out of that cycle of being, right? So you need somebody like you to come along who can say, okay, well, don't worry about that. Let's deal with this. And I know that when I was in children's ministry in one church, someone said, you've got to fix this particular problem in with one of these children. It's terrible. You've got to fix it. And I said, I don't think we need to fix that problem. I think that problem will be solved if we can fix this over here. So the other side is sometimes it's taking a step back and saying, well, let's not deal with the problem, because actually it's a big battle. You've got to choose your battles. But if we deal with something else, which is really easy, I think it actually could fix this, which is, I suppose, is where people like you come in.
Yeah. And that's what I love on the coaching. And some people are thinking, well, how can you be an occupational therapist online? And I think that gives me a better insight for most of the work that I do, because I hear and I discern what's going on, and I can give that space for people to reflect, and I can ask questions. Whereas if I was in the moment, I would be absolutely observing everything and seeing everything, but I would be making too many conclusions, or not too many conclusions, but I would be judging it from a completely different place. Whereas I listen to the information that is being given to me, and it's easier then for me to speak into that, because I only hear what I need to hear. I only hear the key things from which it's much easier to make a decision from, or to reflect back, and then the families just go, oh, or the parents just go, oh, but actually if I did that, or oh, I need to stop doing that, or I didn't realize I was doing that, or it's giving people. And that's what I do love most about coaching, because most of the time I just sit here and allow people to talk, and they come to their own conclusions, with a little bit of guidance, or a little bit of what about this, or nothing much at all, but just reflecting back, giving them a chance to think. Because the people that I work with, people come in, they are keen, they're motivated, they want to make things work, and they want to be equipped and empowered themselves. So I don't see people for years on end every single week. I think that's not a helpful thing. I don't want people to become dependent. I just want them to know that we are always there for them should they need that support, if they want to come back and have a space and a time to reflect. And I do have people that are in our community who've been for a number of years, but that's because it's just a really lovely place to be, not because they're dependent on it. It's just that they have the support, and when they need that opportunity to reflect, to make good decisions, then that's what we are here for.
Ace. Right, I have a question. I'll be honest, it's my question, but I came up with this on Sunday. So on Sunday, we were talking about self-serve tills and how you can go into a supermarket, just in case the description isn't helpful. You go into a supermarket, you've either got a till that's staffed by a member of staff, you put stuff on a conveyor belt, it goes through, they scan it and you pay at the end. Or the self-serve till where you've got to do it all yourself. There is no member of staff to help you. You've got a set of scales and a scanner. You put the stuff through, stick it on the scales, away you go. So I accidentally talked about self-help tills at the checkouts, but it got me thinking actually in quite a positive way. So what would be the most beneficial method for the majority of people? Would it be utilizing something like a staffed till, so you've got interaction with a person, or would it be better for more people to be there without a person, and or therefore who would benefit most from each type? Are there sort of groups of people that would prefer one to another?
Ooh. Now, yeah, no, that is a really good question, and I love it, because there you've got choice. And there it's about actually, we need to find the best sensory fit and that the best emotional, the best physical fit. Everything that we are as humans, let's get the best fit. Yeah, so if you're going through the checkout, goodness me, it is someone who loves that social. They might be someone who's not that great at actually motor planning and organizing terribly much, but they love the communication and they know that they can actually ask somebody and they are there. It's a lot less, it's a funny from a social perspective. You've actually got to go and ask at those I'm going to call it self-help checkout now. Self-serve checkout, because you know, if you're stuck, like I think most of us have been there. It's like you're standing there, and you know that you need help, but you've got to have. It takes a lot socially to go and find somebody, or you're standing there and you feel really embarrassed because actually it says, you know, have you got your own bag or have you scanned it properly or whatever, and that's quite anxiety provoking. So on the one hand, it demands less social response from people, but the demands, if something goes wrong, is much higher. So you've got to have that ability to feel calm. And if your arousal levels, if they are set off quite easily through sensory experiences or any other experiences, then going self-serve probably isn't the best, because actually, although it is a person who is unpredictable on an actual thing that goes along, if they're there at the till, if you've got a person there at the till, at least you can suss them out before you actually get there, so you can hear what their sounds like. They're not going to move erratically normally, so you're not going to get touched unexpectedly by them. You've heard their voice already. They will control everything for you, and therefore I think, although there is that element of interaction which won't be that helpful for some, it is a lot more, it is a lot safer in as much as it's still a human there to be able to plan and organize and motor plan. And you don't have to, there's just less involved if an actual person is there to help you.
I hadn't thought of that at all. That's fascinating.
And I think, you know, and with the self, I just think that there's a lot more to think of and a lot more to plan and organize and coordinate. And you've got to be a bit more, if you're a well sensory integrative, you know, if you're well, and if your sensory integration processing is working well, then you might just prefer just to go to self-help, and you're absolutely fine because you can cope with all the different uncertainties. So yeah, on a till, a person is uncertain, and there may be different sensory experiences involved with it, but it's less uncertain. It's more predictable than actually doing the self-help only because of the things that could go wrong and that could be different.
Predictable uncertainty, I suppose, in a sense.
I think those would be the biggest two, because you've still got the beeps, although you are in control of the beep when you do the beeping yourself. So some people might prefer the self-help. I'm just going to call it self-help, okay? It's just, that's the way it's going to be. So you're in control of the beep, and that's great. So auditory-wise, you know what's going to happen. It'd be nice if they had those little something to dampen down how high a beep it went.
A bag of lettuce on the speaker. That's what I do. I shove it on the speaker. It's one supermarket. It's so loud. Anything.
A little vibration or something. Having a look at how else can you communicate other than just using the auditory system, that you've actually scanned something. Yeah, you've got to scan, you've got to put it in a bag, you've got to organize it. Whereas the till people can do all of that for you.
Actually, it's a good point, because if you can see but you can't hear, then a beep is pointless without a light. So actually, if you're talking about somebody who can see fine but can't hear okay, actually you're ostracizing, I hadn't thought that, a group of people, aren't you? Because they can't see the successful beep. Okay.
And you've also got to be the one, you've got to have good visual discrimination in order to be able to turn the item around to see where the code is, to then get it in the right place. You've got to motor plan it, because it's just like, which way up is it going? Like where, like, and if it doesn't beep the first time, you know, or you don't get a flash, if any of them do have some visual help for you, it's like, what do I do now? Because and people will just keep doing the same thing to try and get it to scan, and because they don't have that, we call it an adaptive response. as an OT. That's one of the things that we always look for when we're in therapy, that when there's a challenge to the body has to adapt and do something different. And you'll find certain people who don't have that praxic ability, that ability to motor plan or to think things through, they'll keep doing the same thing. So they'll keep putting something up against the scanner in the same way, and they won't necessarily think, well, just turn it a bit, tweak it a bit, move it round. That's all an adaptive response using our proprioceptive system, using our visual system, just using our systems integrated together to make sure that you turn something around so that eventually it will scan properly and you get your beep or your flash and then move on. So even going shopping it's a big it demands a lot.
I haven't thought about the fact that although a self-scan till might perceivably be less of an issue because theoretically there could be less interaction, if it goes wrong, you have a lot more interaction because now the checkout of the person who's helping you, now they're not just the other side of a conveyor, but actually, I hadn't thought about this, they're actually now alongside you, sort of pushing you out of the way to, scan a thing and press a button, and you're sort of pushed away from that experience to have to come back again. I hadn't actually thought about it because it isn't something that particularly stresses me.
Yeah, and they might come behind you. It's just like, they can see that you've got suddenly, maybe that there's a flash, or, that the flashing light at the top goes, you're on checkout number 3, and then they come to you and they can come up behind you and you don't realize that somebody's there, but they're perceiving that you're having problems there. You get that unexpected touch. Whereas again, if you've got someone on the till, they're on the other side, they're safe. Some of us still have our COVID screens still up. So you've got a physical thing, but they're not going to get up. If they're on the other side of the till, you've got that nice social distance. They're not going to come up and walk around behind you and touch you unexpectedly. You've got a clear line and no one else is going past you because you're at the till, you're at the checkout, other people are at the other end, the person on the till is across from you. It's a much safer place. Whereas those self-scan, I'll get them right. There's people passing. I think the ones I've experienced anyway, that there's people passing by you. You are a lot more in contact, and there is that unexpectedness all over in all capacities.
I was shopping the other day. I had a small trolley's worth of food. It was late at night. I must have had 30 or 40 items. And as I went towards checkout, of course, it was later. There's no one sitting on the checkouts. It was all self-serve. And as I walked towards it, the lady who was there looking after them looked at me, and she was quite sweet. She said, "Do you want me to open a checkout for you?" And there's nobody in the store, so I don't really care how long it takes. And one of the tills did have a slightly bigger scales thing. I said, "That's fine. I'll do it this way." But again, it is that choice. I mean, she actually did give me the choice of, "I'll get somebody to sit on a checkout for you," because it was quite a large trolley worth. But we need to think about other people, and I had not considered how much less stressful a staffed till would be. I instantly assumed that would be worst for somebody. So your response was the opposite of what I thought you were going to say. So that's interesting.
Oh, you just never know what you're going to get.
No, you don't. It's fascinating. Okay, so what we were talking about with self-help tills was you could have a self-help till. So as you put something through, they always, pretty much all, they video you now. So you could say, "Oh, you're looking good today," or "Good morning." "Oh, good hat, nice glasses." So they can actually offer some encouragement. Or when you put a pack of peanuts through, "This may contain nuts, allergy advice." That could be there. Or if it's something that's got lots of fat, "Oh, do you need that much fat in your diet?" So there actually are things they could do to positively help us. Even things like, did you realize if you buy another 2 of those, you can save money?
I think that would be a nice one. Do you know you could get 2 of them? Because I just think if someone said, "Do you know that the fat content in that?" I can imagine someone turning around just whacking the machine and
Yes, I do. I only thought of that because I was buying a box of cereal, and as I took a look back and thought, I don't know which one to buy, I noticed on the shelf it says high in fiber. So they're actually telling you now on the shelves which one. I was like, "Oh, okay, I know what you're trying to do to me." But I thought you could actually superimpose that onto the thing. So if you're buying a cereal that's got low fiber, did you know if you buy this one, you'll have more fiber? It was just one of those things. Thought I'd share that with you.
I love the way your brain works.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Interesting brain. Right, thank you, Anne. I love this. I guess the message from today is sometimes we need help, and sometimes we need somebody who can take an external view of what's going on, because we can be so of the moment dealing with the stress of a situation, particularly if you're starting to get sleep deprived. You need somebody else who can look into that situation for you, offer an external view and some special advice. And It's nice you said it for you, but I mean, that's exactly what you offer, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. We assess because we have to know each individual thumbprint. There are loads of generalities that we will talk about, and they're great, and it's people take what they can. But there is nothing that beats as deep an assessment as you possibly can to find out how somebody is, who they are, to then see is there any element we can actually treat it and help change the nervous system, and then if not, to help manage and just help people, do what they want to do and thrive in life. So
I like that. Thrive in life. Thrive in life with Anne Laure Jackson. There's a little quote for you. Thank you, Anne, as ever. How can people find out more about you if they want to access that help? Because you can send in questions to us. I will ask them to Anne, so you can get a mostly personalised response. But if you want a real personalised response, you need to contact her directly. If you want to come onto the show to ask her a question, that'd be fantastic. We love, love, love your questions. Anne does not know them before, which she enjoys. Email us here, hello@pure247radio.org, hello@pure247radio.org. And how can people find out more about you?
Yeah, I think going forward, there's two ways now. The first one, if you want to get some resources, find out about your sensory type, have a look at some videos, they're on my website at annelaurejackson.com. But also there is a page now on the pure247radio.org website where you can find out more. You can, if you want to come and engage with me, then there's a special way of helping Pure 24/7 Radio and getting a discount for actually coming and being part of the service as well.
Yeah, it's a win-win. If you go to pure247radio.org/get you home, which is this show, get you home at the end, you can just find that page on the website as well. Then you can get access to Anne and some amazing stuff and some discounts, which will help you, help us, and help Anne as well. Everybody wins, which is always a good thing. Anne, thank you. I look forward to these sessions so much because I never know where we're going to go. I rarely know what your responses are going to be, which is exciting because I like to learn. Learning is good.
It'll be interesting. Maybe sometime as well, we should swap it around. I'll interview you and see what you remember about your sensory health and sensory processing.
That could be a fun one. You can do that next week if you want to. If you've got any particular questions, again, email us here, hello@pure247radio.org, hello@pure247radio.org, and I will put your question to Anne and she will answer it on air for you. Anne, as ever, thank you.
Thank you. Great to see you. Bye.